Hi people, TheEmployedMoth here. I'm going to look at a quote today about our personal philosophy. Let me read it to you. We spend so much time trying to explain our philosophy that it becomes about the other person and not us. Let unspoken words explain it, and while you live it, let someone else try and define it. Then you give them the job of categorizing, and yourself the job of living. So we're talking about personal philosophy here. However you acquire it is just that. You might study for it. You might learn knowledge from the past from books, YouTube videos, podcasts, and use that to help develop your own personal philosophy. Or you might live it through experience, trial and error, failures, success, setting goals, being active in the world. However you get that personal philosophy, it's going to be a mix of both of those things. And who knows how much % of each you're going to have. Every person is going to be different. Some people are going to be more studious and study their personal philosophy, while others might experience it more. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter. That's the type of philosophy that you've aligned with for whatever reason. Your personal experiences are a part of that. Your upbringing, culture, parents, friends, your individual goals that you might have, whatever you've personally experienced that's different from other people, your genetic makeup, biology, it's all going to come into play. Whoever wants to put a label on it has no clue what they're talking about. We're getting closer when we study behavioural genetics, when we study nature and nurture. But we're always going to come down to how much of a % of either side of this spectrum is developing the person. And it's almost impossible to figure that out. Maybe one day they will, but scientists come closer to the idea that a blank slate is not true. We do have genetic and biological factors that influence us from birth. But we also have outside influences as well. But when we're talking about our personal philosophy, I've said before we should let unspoken words explain it. Sometimes it's a waste of energy to try and convince people of what your personal philosophy is and why you've decided to live it and why it is correct and why other people should be taking your ideas on board. Sure, you might want to get into that a little bit. You might want to explain certain things, and that's fine. It's all part of the journey of life. You explain your life, someone else explains theirs, you exchange ideas. Hopefully you make each other a little bit better. But sometimes you might not want to explain it. It might just waste your energy. You might know that you're talking to a brick wall. It'll fall on deaf ears. For example, it's like if you were trying to sell something to people who you know don't want your product, and you spend all this time investing in those people who you know won't buy it, yet your customers are getting ignored. The people who you know are fans of your product, are supportive, those people get ignored when you're trying to sell it to people who won't buy. The same goes with your philosophy. If you know that those people aren't interested, and the more you talk about it, the more you just look like a weirdo, don't bother. Let your work do the talking, or your life do the talking. Live it, and give someone else the burden of having to define it. You might want to define it, sure, that might be something you find interesting, or categorize certain parts of it. But for the most part, let someone else do that. And while they're trying to figure it all out, and wasting their time and mental capacity doing it, you can be living it. There was a great quote by Andy Warhol, and it was something along the lines of, and I'll paraphrase, "Make tons of art. And while people are figuring out whether it's good or not, make more art." And it's a quote that he lived by pretty much. While people were figuring out, was his art good or bad because it was so new, so revolutionary, he would just make some more and bring some more out. And it's always the great artists or musicians and whatever, the creatives, who are the most polarizing. Because when they're putting out that new material, there's people in the old camp and then there's people in the new camp. And that's what's groundbreaking, the polarizing topics. And the same should go for your personal philosophy. If people aren't up with it, then just cut them out. If it's polarizing, then you know you're doing something different. You're not going with the crowd. Dividing people is okay in that respect. Let the stragglers fall behind. Let them live the standard narrative, while you live a completely different life, one on your terms, one that you want to live. In your personal philosophy and your lifestyle, there should be no compromise. Our life is short. We don't have too much time on this planet to do our best. And when it's spent trying to please people who we know will never be pleased no matter what, it's wasted. So I finish with, give them the job of categorizing, and you need to give yourself the job of living. That's it for now. The Employed Moth signing out.